يكثر الحديث اليوم عن مؤتمر تأسيسي ممكن أن يدعو إليه الرئيس الفرنسي مانويل ماكرون. برأيك ما هو جدول الأعمال الذي يجب أن يتضمنه هذا المؤتمر؟
I don't know too much about it. I think it's a conceptual level right now. Again, I think the important focus is on what the Lebanese should be doing, forming a government as soon as possible that can really undertake these reforms, will remain committed to it, and will show to your friends around the world, and you have many who want to help, that the political will exists, that there'll be sustained commitment and actual implementation of these reforms that will warrant us and make our support valuable and meaningful.
إذا بالانتقال إلى الانتخابات الرئاسية المزمع حصولها في تشرين المقبل، وحضرتك كنت سفير إبان القرار الرئاسي عام 2014، برأيك إلى أي مدى نحن مقبلون أو ممكن أن نشهد قرار رئاسي مباشر؟
Well, I think it's a risk. It's a risk every 6 years. Every 6 years there seems to be a crisis over the presidency. This is one of the structural facts of life in Lebanon. I think there are limited options right now. Again, as an analyst, I'm not speaking in any way as a policymaker. There are limited options right now in front of the Lebanese on how to go about this. It's very hard, in my experience, for them to find compromise candidates. So unless you can get 2/3 support for either an extension of the president or a compromise candidate or somebody else, you are looking at, by definition, you are looking at a potential gap, which would be very unfortunate for everyone.
هل برأيك أن الرئيس ميشيل عون سيسعى إلى التمديد؟
I have no idea. That would be a question for the president.
الرئيس سعد الحريري كان متواجد منذ يومين في واشنطن. هل برأيك هناك دعم أمريكي ما لإعادة تولي رئاسة الحكومة، وكيف تنظر إلى تعليق عمله السياسي؟
Well, again, these are decisions that he and his colleagues make without consulting us. It's not an American decision in any respect. We do have warm regards for him and for his colleagues. We have enormous respect for the family and all that they have donated and all that they have lost for the historic history in Lebanon. But these decisions are for Mr. Sheikh Saad to make, not for us. And I have to again ask him. We want to work with anybody, I want to emphasize anybody who shares the goals that we have in terms of reform for Lebanon so it can pull itself out of this extraordinary crisis that has befallen the country.
What about his suspension of his role in politics?
Again, these are decisions for him to make.
He gave a chance to independents to win more seats.
Yeah, I do. I think without him, and it showed why there was these structural obstacles to independents winning because of the way the lists work. You know, if you're not on a list with a dominant leader, it's very hard to get elected. But when he pulled out, there was no dominant list. And that was that opening that so many of these independents were able to use to make themselves known and to compete.
هل برأيك اليوم لبنان هو أولوية بالنسبة إلى هذه الإدارة الأمريكية وهو على جدول أعمالها في الشرق الأوسط؟
Lebanon has always been an issue of concern for the United States. We care deeply about its survival and its health. We have many friends there. It's a country that has a form of democracy that we welcome. There are many, many active Lebanese Americans in my country who care deeply about Lebanon and make sure that American policymakers are focused on it. We know from experience that when things go wrong in Lebanon, they don't stay in Lebanon. They affect all of us. And so all of us need to be smart about ways to help Lebanon achieve true stability.
هناك اتهامات توجه إلى الإدارة الأمريكية في لبنان لأنها لا تفرض عقوبات على حلفائها من السياسيين برغم فسادهم وتكتفي بمعاقبة السياسيين المقربين من حزب الله. فكيف تعلق على هذا الأمر؟
Well, I mentioned in an article I wrote recently that my impression is that it is a misconception to believe that sanctions on the non-Shia allies of Hezbollah, as opposed to sanctioning Hezbollah, but sanctioning their allies, does not achieve, if the goal is to reduce the power of Hezbollah, it is not achieving that goal. Now, there may be other reasons to impose those sanctions in terms of the behavior of certain individuals, corruption and so forth, but if the larger goal is, in fact, to somehow reduce Hezbollah's power, I don't see it as achieving that goal. I think Hezbollah's power rests elsewhere, outside its alliance.
سأختم حضرة السفير بالسؤال الأخير بالنسبة إلى انفجار أو تفجير 4 آب، برأيك هل سنصل إلى محاسبة المسؤولين عن هذا التفجير في ظل المحاولات لإزاحة القاضي طارق بطار عن موقعه؟
Well, again, it's really, I think, inappropriate for me as a friend but a foreigner to comment on judicial matters, investigations like that. I was in the port a few days after the explosion. I was in the neighborhoods that were destroyed. It was shocking. And it's shocking today that all this time that has passed, almost 2 years, and there's been really no effective investigation or accountability for what happened. And I think, and I know from my friends in Lebanon, that this is a source of enormous frustration. And the friends of Lebanon outside the country do not understand why they're